Good morning, everyone. This is Siembra Radio Show, and today we're not going to have Jasmine for as she is the main host of this radio show, but she's been out for taking care of personal things. But she'll be back. She'll be back soon. Today we're going to take that interview that we promised like a couple of weeks ago with our guest Darrell Lucas, and for hosting this radio interview, we have Pastor Dennis right here. So good morning, gentlemen.
Thanks for being there, everybody.
Good afternoon. In my case, I'm in North Carolina, about 3 hours. So I'm about 3 hours ahead of you guys here.
Oh wow!
And this is a coastal show today.
That's right, coast to coast. All right. Well, good afternoon, Darrell and Pastor. I'm going to be off camera, so I'll let you take it from here. Good morning.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad you're able to join us today. My friend here, we were able to meet online. He's an author. He writes for different publications, and I learned that we had some areas of heritage that were similar. I come from a Baptist, Pentecostal background. Darrell, what did you call your background?
I'm a Presbycostal because I grew up as a Presbyterian, specifically in the Presbyterian, what's now the Presbyterian Church USA. I ended up going charismatic in college, so I call myself a Presbycostal.
Okay. And so you were a Presbyterian Church USA?
Yep.
Okay, and was it because of your college that you became exposed to Maranatha campus ministries? Is that correct?
Yeah, specifically a church that they're descended from their former chapter at my alma mater, the University of North Carolina. It was known as Triangle Christian Fellowship at my time, but midway through my freshman year, it changed its name to its current name, Kings Park International Church. It's based in Durham, about 20 minutes east of campus of Carolina along I-40.
Okay. Now, most of you know that both Yasmin and I both also grew up Pentecostal, so there's a lot of things that Darrell has seen in his experience that we can relate to, some of which have been repackaged. So it took me a little bit of time when he first started talking about some of this stuff to realize what he was talking about, because I didn't know it by those same words, by those same titles. But nonetheless, we are looking forward to hearing this story. Darrell, as you grew up, what were your primary influencers as you were growing up before you went to college?
I picked up my political leanings mainly from my dad, who, as you can, I picked up my accent from him, even though I'm North Carolina born and bred. He grew up in Newark, New Jersey, across the Hudson River from New York.
Okay.
He turned me into and he was basically a classic Union Democrat. He was the union representative for the local transit system for several years, and also picked up a lot from my mother as well, who basically raised me as a single parent, because my mom and dad divorced when I was in 4th grade. And I also learned I'm also a very avid reader. I do a lot of research. I'm a madman for research.
Okay. What were some of your favorite books that you read as a kid?
I was into sports and new history, news. I ran the gamut pretty much.
Okay. Now, This is a question I'm dying to ask. And I've heard it a lot. I've heard a lot of the justification for Christians being Republican and African Americans being Republican, being that the Democratic Party is the racist party. How do you understand the Democratic Party from your parents' perspective?
Yeah, I grew up in I think I was the first generation of my family on either my mom or dad's side not to grow up during in the days of segregation. And looking back, right around the time my mom and dad they were growing up is around the time that the Republicans threw their doors open to segregationist Democrats who weren't too keen on the national party becoming more open to civil rights. Jesse Helms, Strom Thurmond, those people like that. So
okay. So what year was that started to happen?
From what I recall, it started as a trickle in the 1950s and became a flood around in the 1960s, where in the 1960s he's been culminating in 1964, as you probably know, during Lyndon Johnson's 44 state landslide, when 5 of the states he won were old South states. My state of North Carolina wasn't one of them. I think LBJ got a decent sized majority of it, but when I look back, I was surprised to see my hometown of Charlotte. He barely got a majority of the vote. Because turns out that, and this is the history buff of me coming out here, Charlotte was one of the first areas of the South to start turn Republican. It only went, LBJ barely won in 64, Carter barely won in 76, and then Clinton barely won in 96, which may come as a surprise to most people who kept following events in recent years, where Charlotte's become one of the most democratic areas of the South. But it surprised me too, as being a Charlotte native.
Yeah. Well, in reading my history, and I don't have the Southern heritage that you do, so I don't have the perspective on the boots on the ground. But my understanding was that the civil rights movement is what galvanized this shift to the Republican Party. Is that correct?
Exactly. Basically, the parties almost flipped sides, went sides, which is rather ironic. The party of Lincoln was essentially taken over by descendants of Confederates.
So to those Republican-leaning minorities that try to bring up the Democratic position on race previous to that, and say that is still the party's identity. What do you have to say to that?
That's baloney. If you look back, the party's basically changed sides on the issue. That's what
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Since you brought up party, I thought that was a golden opportunity to ask some of those questions. So, so you said you were into sports. Who are some of your favorite sports, and who are the characters you liked?
Well, of course, baseball, of course, as you see by my shirt, I'm an ardent Philadelphia Phillies fan, which is kind of unusual for someone whose dad's side of the family came from New York, northern New Jersey. And I got into it because, you see, Charlotte is normally Braves country, but back in my middle school years, the Braves still stunk it up. I mean, this was back in the days when they still played in the old Atlanta Fulton County Stadium, which received 50,000 or so, but they were lucky to get 20,000 in the late 80s, early 90s, and even that was kind of sparse. So I got intrigued by the Phillies because that was those years of Lenny Dykstra, John Crook, Darren Dalton, because they were the nearest National League team to Charlotte. And so I had to, for most of the time, I had to depend on listening to games on AM 1210, which is a 50,000 watt clear channel monster that easily reaches Charlotte at night. And so I'm off. And of course, being from North Carolina, I'm an ardent Carolina fan. In fact, my uncle Walter Davis, who played for so many years in the NBA with the Phoenix Suns and Denver Nuggets, he's my mom's baby brother. And my cousin Hubert Davis is now the coach. Football, of course, I'm a fan. I was a kid before the Carolina Panthers arrived. I was a kind of fan of the Philadelphia Eagles because I liked Randall Cunningham.
Okay.
I happened to fell in love with the Philadelphia Flyers mainly because of Eric Lindros. And basketball, I fell in love with the Hornets like many people in my neck of the woods did, and so still trying to warm back up to them after their second incarnation came back in 2004. I also got hooked on soccer because my high school was a regional soccer powerhouse, and so in fact our third year MLS team, Charlotte FC, of course. I attended a few games in the court.
So what role did religion play with your childhood? Was that something you paid much attention to, or?
It was, well, my mom and dad, my mom more even tried to, always tried to force feed me being religion. You have to remember we're in North Carolina, the Bible Belt. Religion is pretty much ingrained.
Yes.
I started questioning a few things back in my middle school years, which is kind of natural, because being an avid reader about looking more at evolution and whatnot. I briefly veered, and that didn't really sit too well with some of my middle school friends, because back in my day, there were a lot of houses that had Bible verses on their front yards. And in fact, I still remember when I mentioned I believe in evolution, one of my friends joked, "So that mean your mom was an ape?"
Oh.
I didn't really. By around ninth grade, I was almost toward agnosticism, though my mom still kind of dragged me to church because she felt it was the thing to do. I mean, like I said, it's almost unthinkable in this part of the country not to believe in God. But so it kind of pushed me away a little further away. I think I got saved in my junior year of high school, but I didn't realize it at the time. But I kind of bought into fear more than anything. And in hindsight, I think that's what it set me up for how I got pulled in college 2 years later.
Okay. So by the time you got to college, why did you even have an interest in a campus ministry?
Well, it was kind of by accident. Right? It was actually my accident, because I remember I encountered these guys with them like it was yesterday. I was coming down from my dorm, coming coming down after packing my stuff back to my dorm after freshman camp, was getting ready to head to campus, get my books. This guy and this younger guy sitting in the lobby and asked me, what's my name? He asked me what my name was. He told me that he knew God had a plan for me. He knew because God had told him. Something about that kind of. I was like, what? This guy doesn't even know me. Comes off like he knows more than anything. He said he was with an ministry called Waymaker Christian Fellowship, which was an outreach of what was then Triangle Christian Fellowship. He invited me to go to church the following Sunday, but I happen to remember getting some literature from Waymaker at freshman orientation, and the thing that stuck out at me was that of all the groups where I got information from, they're the only ones who have to notice my name on my name tag. That stuff that sticks. That's important because you gotta consider, Dennis.
Yeah.
Carol back in my day, there were well over 22,000 students there. You know when you're going to go to school that size, you're basically going to be a number. So even though my high school sent a small army to me there and has done so for years. In my case, my freshman year, there are 43 of us there. You still naturally want to know people see you as a person rather than a number. That stuck out. So, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Something about that just seemed off, and it was enough that I decided I didn't go to church on that Sunday. But as I thought about it more and more, and thought they seemed welcoming. So I went to a little pizza party they were having on campus that Monday. They seemed pretty welcoming. They seemed pretty welcoming. Yeah. And what also stuck out at me was that one of the guys and one of the other campus ministers there was a black dude, was black like me. That's something you didn't see back in those days, especially in the South.
Right.
In the South, and that was important. That was a big thing to me because from eighth grade, I was in AG and academically gifted in advanced placement of their equivalent classes for most of the time from 7th grade onward. And at most, I was one of maybe 4 or 5 black kids in there. That following Sunday, I went to church with them for the first time. First time. Now, you got to remember this. I grew up as a real button-down Presbyterian. When a gal next to me raised her hand in the air first time and just held it there, I was like, what the heck is this? And then they practically ordering us to cheer after every song to tell us when to raise our hands. It felt something about it didn't feel real at all. And I got a chance to look at their.
It felt forced.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, then I went to their. I had to look at their statement of faith, and it was deeply fundamentalist and everything. And I thought, I don't know if I want to come back there again, but it was the first of many times that many times over the next 6 months that I started. When I thought about them, I said, I wondered, maybe should I stay? So I went to their first weekly meeting on Monday night. The following Monday, pretty much more the same.
So how long were you involved in this group?
6 months, and felt a whole lot longer than that.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because I like to say I was in that outfit for just around 180 days, and I was probably lied to 180 times, if not more.
So would it be safe to say you saw lots of flags, but because of that warm connection, them knowing your name, critical things like that, you stayed to give them a chance.
Yeah, just in case I was, and partly because I thought, I guess part of it was, in the back of my part was I wasn't used to that kind of environment, but it was at the scales that started falling off about a month in, when I attended a pro-choice rally about 3 weeks after Hurricane Fran barreled through North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
And I got my picture on the second page of our student newspaper, the Daily Tar Heel.
I bet that went over well.
Well, yeah. Well, I happened to talk with him. So that Monday, I happened to talk with at one of the girls in that my friends that bunch, a black gal there from there. And we talk about. She asked me, "You're pro-choice?" I could actually feel the disdain in her voice. And she said, "Christians can't be pro-choice." So she showed me a verse about how, but before I formed you, I knew you. And one of their campus ministers overheard said that the Bible is pretty clear on this. And I was about this close to saying, just who in the hell do you think you are? And about 2 years before that, I probably would have said that out loud, but somewhere along the path between from my ears to my brain to my mouth, it's like this vise closed it off.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
What kind of, do you mind if I ask what kind of position your parents have on the issue?
They're both pro-choice. My mom is and my dad were both pro-choice. My mom is pro-choice. I think my dad was too. They're too. But
so this isn't like bringing you back to the past. This is like foreign position for this girl to criticize you like that.
Yep. And then they started falling even further a few weeks later when this traveling preacher, a former Hell's Angel, showed up and started preaching hellfire and brimstone. I got into it with him, and I basically told him that God didn't give a. Yeah, I into it with him, and I felt enough to rile the other, saying that God really didn't give a flip about your political views.
Oh, so he was pushing politics.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, yes. So I riled the other in the DTH, and one of my other friends in that bunch one of my friends in their sees and says that tells me that I had to jump anything I believed in that didn't jive with the Bible without even thinking about it. There's no way I could reorder my mind to think on such simplistic terms. I didn't get to Carolina that way. I told her we'd have to agree to disagree, and she told me, "This is about difference of opinion, Darrell. This is about your salvation."
Ooh.
Yeah.
So did she try to prove from Scripture where it was that her positions came from, or did she just presume that her word was good enough?
She presumed. She told me that her word was good enough, and I guess she presumed that if I looked for myself, I'd see it her way. But it was around that time that I started. I was really for about the second time I was that close to walking out. But again, that vise in my mind can't close it off.
Mm-hmm.
but I did start noticing some things in that about that bunch that I hadn't really noticed before. For one, I noticed they were really enmeshed. You really couldn't tell where one of them ended and one of them began. Think like Camisons, the board.
There were a lot of groupthink then.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I know that as someone who came from, I was in the same class with most of my same people in high school for the better part of 3-4 years, but you could at least tell where one of us ended or the other began.
Yeah.
And I started, it made me wonder if, and then later on during Bible study like that, they talked about how much feeling convicted, sins of the flesh and whatnot. And I felt like I was being pulled in two directions for the most of my first semester. They're like, put it this way, on some level, I knew that what they were telling me was baloney, but part of me was afraid in case they were telling me the truth. They were telling me the truth, and it got to the point that right after Thanksgiving, I literally reached my limit, and I went down. I made a list of the pros and cons of the group, and the cons far outweighed the pros. So I said, "That's it. I'm getting out of here."
Yeah. When they were talking about the sins of the flesh, was that a generic reference that they just inserted whatever they thought it referenced, or did they actually try to search the Bible to find what was meant by that?
They did a lot of proof texting, which is
okay.
Something you probably experienced a lot yourself.
Oh yes.
Also another thing I noticed with this constant drumbeat of how they were telling us that the people were hating us because of what we believed. The whole persecution mentality complex. This thing. Yeah.
So they were trying to create a distance between you and general culture, because as a Christian, don't pay attention to general culture because they already hate you because of what you believe.
Yep.
Sounds too common.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are some other things that caught your attention? I mean, those are significant things. Thank you very much for that.
And of course, the whole thing about manufactured enthusiasm. The way they spun it was that if you could yell and scream at him for a football or basketball game, you could do the same for God. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew that was baloney because by inclination, I'm a yeller and a screamer. And I don't know if you watched a Carolina Tar Heel football or basketball game. Mm-hmm. They don't need to tell us when it's shooting.
Yeah.
In fact, I like to say one of my biggest frames of reference is my first football game was a student when we whipped up on Clemson 45-0. Mm-hmm. I have to say I saw more real enthusiasm in that game than all the 6 months I was in that bunch put together.
Wow. So you were Presbyterian background, and you consider yourself a Presbycostal. Why did you even keep a connection with the Pentecostal realm after that? It was
I guess it was kind of by accident, believe it or not. I was trying to make sense of what happened what happened to me, trying to make sense of what happened to me, trying to make sense of what happened to me. I actually ran into some people who weren't as off the wall as they were. This was well after I walked out on them.
Okay.
Walked out on them, and I found some that really thought did some more looking into it, and so maybe there actually is something to this. As we're unlike the twisted thing, the version they served me up in my fresh back then. So even now, I'm a lot more dialed down than a lot of black charismatics tend to be. For instance, I'm not one for pastors yelling and screaming all the bloody time.
Okay.
I believe you can make your point without yelling. It's more because I guess it's more the Presbyterian part of me, because I'm more of an intellectual than anything.
Uh-huh.
A charismatic with a brain, if you will.
I like that. You know, we, from my vantage point, we always look to the Black Baptists as the comparison to white Pentecostals. And then the Black Pentecostals as more extreme than us. I'm not coming from a Baptist. Have you ever been to a Baptist church?
Once,
Okay.
maybe back in college. Not quite. Not though. Of course, I grew up. I went to school with quite a few of them.
Okay. So, after hearing a little bit about your background, I did a little bit of research on the group that you are connected with, and were they actively teaching inner healing?
I didn't see it as I didn't see it as much in my time in there. The closest thing I saw to it was when a few months when about a few weeks in, when they laid hands, they went up to ask to be filled with the Holy Spirit for the first time, and they asked me to raise my hands, and I did, but I felt like I felt like flapping them and taking off. I was like, what the heck is this? I'm like, why am I doing this?
Uh-huh.
When they started blibbering in tongues for the first time, and I just kept one. I was trying. The only way I was able to keep myself to stay grounded was to keep one eye open.
Uh-huh.
They didn't know it at the time, but I didn't see anything like inner healing like that. Nothing. Let's see. I think if they did teach about it, was maybe on the. No, I don't think I really saw much of it in there.
Okay.
I don't think they really delved that much into my time in there.
Okay. So that wasn't part of it then, because I understand that's part of it now.
Yeah.
And I also understand that they're really into shepherding, which
yes.
having a person. What did you see that when you were there?
Oh, what I now realize was a watered down version of shepherding. Yes, because I was restrained because I only found out about their connection to Maranatha quite by accident in my sophomore year, when I was early in my sophomore year, when I was still trying to when I was all I knew about them. They were found in 1981, so I thought for sure. Sure, other people have been put through the ringer by these guys. So I searched on Yahoo, which was the search engine at the time, hoping to find some news groups about it. And one of the first results in the search results for Kingsford International Church came up as a link called Post Maranatha. Now I only have to remember the name Maranatha because one of the many books I read in my effort to make sense of what happened was a book called Churches That Abuse by Ron and Roth. It meant Maranatha figured very prominently. I clicked on the link, and there was Kings Park's name listed there,
Wow.
address and everything. I was like, what the heck? Then I happen to remember they talked about how they were birthed out of campus ministry. It was pretty odd. I wondered. It seemed to me that campus ministry was Maranatha. So after reading a little bit, I got some more information on Maranatha from a former member of the outfit at the university who had been part of their chapter at the University of New Mexico, and also looked on Rick Ross's site for some more information on it. So first thing, naturally, I warned my friends in there about it, and their response was, in so many words, so what? As far as they were concerned, people were being saved. That was all that really mattered to them.
The ends justifies the means.
Yep. And so when I told the lead campus minister that there, I thought we'd have some report because he was a Charlotte guy. I'm a Charlotte guy. And he basically said all that matters, people are being saved, and it seemed to me that all that matters is that they want to be part of what God was doing.
Uh-huh. Wow.
I couldn't believe it because the closest parallel I can think of is to Harry Markopoulos, the Madoff whistleblower. I remember when he was testifying before the House for the House right after Madoff imploded. A quote from Carolyn Maloney, the congresswoman from the Upper East Side, still sticks out at me. The first when he was telling off the SEC for ignoring his red flags. I'm paraphrasing here. Maloney told them that he wasn't just telling them. I think that there was something wrong. She was giving them detailed evidence of that this is wrong. She was saying. Her exact quote was that they are not trading. They are not doing this. This is the same thing I was telling him. I was saying, he's lying to you. He's been lying to you. Here's the evidence. And they were not only okay with it, but it was increasingly apparent they were going to be complicit in the deceit.
Yeah,
and that was a wake-up call for me.
I just want to take a sidebar real quick, since we made reference to a couple things that I think most of our readers probably don't know what we're talking about. Shepherding is a movement that believe that we are innately flawed. We are corrupt in our background, and we don't know how corrupt we are. We cannot trust our own judgment. Therefore, we need a shepherd, someone who's been in the faith longer than us, that's further on this path, to be able to call us out on those things that we have to change. And a shepherd is kind of like our own personal pastor.
Yep.
Who tells us what we're supposed to do and when we're supposed to do it.
They taught that disobeying your pastor is tantamount to disobeying God. As far back your first, the way they spun is that they believe that our minds were so corrupted as a result of Adam and Eve eating the apple. We can't trust them.
Yeah.
You can only trust your heart.
Yeah.
We both know that's
and how do we?
God
$1
gave
million
us
question is being able to trust your mind, but you can trust your heart. Well, what's the difference? How do you know?
It's out to lunch from both a secular and a Christian perspective. From a secular perspective, it's obvious. It's an open door to brainwashing. From a Christian perspective, like I said,
exactly.
God gave us our minds, and we're supposed to love the Lord with your heart, soul, and your mind.
Exactly. The other one I wanted to bring up is inner healing. it when therapy first originated, the church didn't trust therapy, but inner healing was the Christian version of psychotherapy. And so it was taking you back to your mother's womb, all that kind of crap. So it was a sanctified version of psychotherapy. So
looking for demons under every rock.
Yeah, and it definitely tied in with the whole issue of demon possession, because historically, the idea of Christians being possessed has never been accepted, but it became accepted, the idea that Christians can be demonized through the introduction of inner healing. So, but anyway, so back to your story. So what became the final straw of you walking out?
Well, of all things, it was over because one of the girls in there, a senior, was shining a lot of attention on me, enough that I asked a question any 18-year-old going on 19 would ask, is this girl in love with me? So having badly misread signals from a girl back in my high school days, I was about to make the same mistake this time. So I thought, I did what I believed I should have done in high school. I asked what some of my other lady friends what to look for. So inevitably, I wound up asking some of my lady friends in Waymaker, and they both told me, let me pray about it and ask God what he thinks. I felt like shaking and saying, I want to know what God thinks. I want to know what you think.
Uh-huh.
So that means I tried to imagine myself of saying that to someone coming to me for advice and whatnot. And every time I found myself asking, you pompous asshole, pardon language here.
Uh-huh.
That made me realize if this is the kind of person I gotta be in order to be like them,
Uh-huh.
I don't want it, because all this talk. By then I was hearing all this talk about how they wanted me to be the Darrell God wanted me to be, right? He wanted me to be. So I said, that's it. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I think it was a lot easier. I think it was a lot easier for me to pull away because I've noticed that groups like that tend to pull in people who don't have a lot of outside ties.
Got it.
I don't think it's any coincidence, if my memory serves me, that I could count maybe on one hand the number of kids who came from major metropolitan areas like Charlotte, or the second largest, Raleigh-Durham, Chapel Hill, or the Triangle as we call it, or Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, called the Triad, or Asheville, Fayetteville, Wilmington. Most of the guys and gals there came from small towns from out of state. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot easier for them to get
sucked in,
to get in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot easier for me to break away.
Do you think putting that girl on you was intentional?
I haven't found it as. I don't think there was any evidence of it was intentional. All I see is that she was. I don't know if there was anything intentional on the group's part or not, but I do believe though that she was actually trying to love bomb me because they it was an open secret in that bunch that I was their problem child, that I didn't really buy what they were selling. But they didn't.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked that question is because I learned as a young person that the Mormons tended to missionary date. And I know that is a thing for some groups where they take advantage of that potential romantic tie to suck someone in and lower their resistance. So that's why I was asking that.
Catch them in a weak moment.
Yeah. So you had talked about later on discovering that there might be something more to Pentecostalism later. What specifically was it that caught your attention?
Well, yeah, it seemed that they weren't as, they seemed to be a bit more grounded. They weren't. It didn't seem like you could. It's hard. Well, put this way. For all the times I was in that bunch, whenever I saw someone raising their hands, I got the image of someone snorting crack or lighting up a joint. Because I didn't want, because if I was thinking to myself, because all that there, if this is what this baptism of the Holy Spirit does to you, I don't want it.
Yeah.
If I saw people in there other people who didn't seem to have lost it and thought, maybe there is something to this. Something to this.
Yeah.
Just a natural outgrowth of my journalistic curiosity, I guess.
Right. Okay. So, is that what? Because, I mean, after your experience at that church, I would tend to think you would probably never walk back into a place like that ever again. But something triggered you to at least participate in religion moving forward, and I'm kind of wondering what that might have been.
I guess it was my journalistic curiosity getting the better of me. Getting the better of me, because I was finding out there was something to it. And to this. I mean, put this way, I didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I just threw out the toxic. I just threw out the toxic stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I see a lot of people today that are going through the same period of life that you went through then, that are just walking away from faith outright. They don't want to hear another word about it. They don't want to talk about it. I mean, and
that's kind of where I was at one point. But when I ran into some people who weren't like that. I'm guessing because I think it's right around my time that people didn't realize they didn't have to be as pushy about it.
Uh-huh. That's good. Okay. Well, I know in some of the Facebook groups I'm in several deconstruction Facebook groups. And for those who don't know what deconstruction is, it's questioning beliefs that you previously held and trying to determine if or how much of what you previously accepted as truth really has some validity to it. But I've noticed in several of those groups that there's there's a huge diversity of responses to that kind of a crisis. Some of which immediately turn to atheism and they want to know everything that they can about atheism. And others who I guess they're offended, but they're not really even interested in challenging the root of that offense and why it bothered them. So it almost seems like, it's, you hurt my feelings, but I'll be back tomorrow kind of thing. Whereas for me, it forced me to go back to the basic doctrines that I believe and what is the basis for that? Is that experiential? Is there some basis in science? Is there some basis in reality? What does that tell me about the nature of the world? And, I'm like you, I'm a thinker. So I processed a lot of this and came to realize that the Bible, in my estimation, doesn't teach 75% of what I was raised to believe it did, or more. But it's all interpretation.
But you were taught to accept because what the pastor said was the law.
Yes.
And
yes.
he knew more about it, so it wasn't your place to question it. Yep, seen that too.
Yeah, and I've come to realize that's the modern version of the Catholics requiring you to have Mass in Latin. We might be able to access the Bible. We might be able to buy it at our local store, and we're not going to be criticized from the pulpit for buying it and reading it on our own. But if we walk away with the wrong interpretation, we'll be criticized. So even if you can read it, your Bible is still your pastor is still your cipher. And you have to interpret it the way he interprets it, which is as dangerous.
Yep, and I would also add it completely negates like I said, it negates the whole concept of the priesthood of believers.
Right.
We're not any better than they are.
Yeah.
They're not any better than we are.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I was just talking with my co-host about the difference between how the Jews read the Bible and how the Christians read the Bible. The Jewish perspective is question everything. And the Christian is don't you dare question. Yours is to accept. You ever heard that?
That's probably the case in the more conservative Christian church, but the more mainline school from where I came from, that is, and I'd also add that people that Christians will overlook the fact, overlook that Jesus is the criterion by which we're supposed to interpret it.
Yes. And the funny thing about that is if you look at how Jesus interpreted the Old Testament, he doesn't follow hermeneutic rules. He leaves you scratching your head wondering, okay, although I will accept what he says because of who he is, how did he get there? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
So you said the difference between conservative and the more liberal or mainline churches. How did they teach you to read the Bible? To ask questions?
Yeah, yeah, yep, yep.
Okay.
Yep. In fact, if we're not, in fact, I remember reading a few years back that said if God's so, if I honestly think if God's so small that we can't question him, something's wrong, bad wrong.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I don't know how many people I have told in personal counseling situations, God will not fall off the throne just because you asked a question. You know, he's not that insecure. If so, why would we base our entire religious tradition on it? You know, I mean, who wants to serve a God that is that insecure and it is that triggered by us?
Yeah, which is it's ironic that a lot of evangelicals accuse these mainliners of putting God in a box when that's exactly what they're doing.
Exactly.
I say someone's been in both worlds.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, we have, according to my clock, 3 minutes left. I've enjoyed having you, Darrell. Is there any last thing you would like to say?
Just don't be if something doesn't if you're in a group if something don't feel right about it, don't be afraid to ask questions about it. And whatever you do, don't give up ties with your friends. No, if they're with your friends.
Yeah.
And above all else, if somebody comes off like they know more about you than you do, and they don't know you from Adam, there's something wrong, bad wrong.
You nailed it. You nailed it. I've read several books on people who came out of cults and work with people who are coming out of cults, and those are some of the main points that they make. They point out that cults like to get you in a loop. They like to get you busy all the time. They like to get you in pre-programmed
They did that to me
ways of
too.
thinking and how to process stuff. And the key to helping somebody get out is taking them back to a time before they were in that mind frame and getting them to think independently and let them then start evaluating their current belief systems based on that freedom of thought.
That's what saved me more than anything. Is I wasn't willing to give up what got me to Carolina, thinking critically.
Yeah.
Which is strange because you don't get to a school like Carolina by believing critical thinking, the eighth deadly sin, and that's exactly what some of these guys taught and still teach.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to our listeners that are out there. As a last minute thing, just tell us where they can find some of your writings.
I'm all over the place. I'm on Substack at Darrell Lucas. That's DarrellLucus.substack.com. I'm also frequently writing at Daily Coach, and I'm on Daily Coach and search at dailycoach.com/user/Darrell Lucas, and I'm on Twitter at Darrell Lucas, and on Facebook at Darrell Lucas NC.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a blessed week, everybody.
You too. Have a good one.
Bless.